It's Wisdom Dharma Chat. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Daniel Aitken, CEO of Wisdom Publications. And tonight our special guest is Venerable Robina.
Hello, people. Happy to be here with Daniel and all of you.
So I think everyone knows Venerable, but I'll do the introduction.
Okay.
Ordained since the late 1970s, Venerable Robina has worked full-time since then for Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche's FPMT. Over the years, she has served as editorial director of Wisdom Publications,
True.
editor of Mandala magazine, executive director of Liberation Prison Project, and as a touring teacher of Buddhism. And I'm sure many other titles and adventures. The Venerable Robina's life and work with prisoners has been featured in the documentary films Chasing Buddha and Key to Freedom. A very warm welcome back to Wisdom Publications.
Yes, exactly. Happy to be here.
So tonight we're going to, of course, talk about the new course.
Yes.
And the new course is on Mahamudra, and it goes live July 11th. And it's based on this book, Mahamudra, How to Discover Our True Nature. And that book was we published in 2018, right?
Yep.
So, one of the things we were talking about earlier, just before we came on,
yes,
was how Lama really had confidence in his students, Western students. That's an amazing quality of a teacher, and so early with Dharma coming to the West, and these teachings like Mahamudra, quite advanced, high teachings, and he had so much confidence that he would, teach these things to his students, even 6 yogas of Naropa, quite advanced, which yeah. So I wanted you to just talk a little bit about.
Yeah, I mean, I know. When I first met Lama, well, first when I went to Kathmandu when I became a nun, about 18 months after I met Lama, and I was sitting there in what they call the publishing room, and I was doing all the ronioing, typing the prayers, and I kept coming up with this little thing. I'd hear about Vajradhara and whatever, and then he'd have this little practice, and I didn't use the term tumo. I don't even know what he called it. But I discovered there was this really esoteric practice, this, kind of like advanced tantric practices for these beginners. And it was just because I think it was Lama, and he would say this, that he somehow felt that because, I mean, as we know, if we hear the teachings, attachment is what your energy is, what you're transforming in, or the garbage is what you're transforming in Tantra. So there's Lama coming into the Western world, which is completely personified, but is a personification of garbage, delusions. So he can see immediately it's ripe, we're ripe and ready for it. And he said he always thought that modern people understood this concept that you could transform something like poison into medicine. So he just somehow had this, and I suppose it has to be also that he was such a yogi. He was a scholar, but a yogi. His expression was of a yogi. So then he could see potential, and he had this immense compassion. And I always joke and say that I think Lama was really a hippie, but he kind of pretended to be a Tibetan, Because the thing that really strikes you when you realize how Tibetans were, the way when I first heard Lama Zopa teach the Lam Rim, he was talking as if it was 10th century. It would be exactly the same. But Lama learned, and it was so astonishing, I'm still astonished, somehow he's able, even his chaotic English, he could see the minds of modern people and could speak in modern terms, which was really unusual. And I suppose, yes, I hadn't thought of that ever, that he appreciated our potential. But it's also interesting because, about that time, in late 70s, he started what he called the Geshe program. A miniature replica of the program in the monasteries, starting with Dura. And Geshe Tekchok, who later the abbot of Serajay, he asked him to come, and he was very skeptical. And he said, I don't think these people are qualified. And then he said, after 6 months, he said to Lama, I'm wrong. They're qualified. They really appreciate the super intelligence of modern people, So Lama had this incredible ability to do that. It was so true. And I never thought of it before you said it. It was a very nice way to put it.
Yeah, this belief in his students, that's as such that he could teach these highest teachings. So when you were going to these teachings of 6 yogas or Mahamudra, did you have the sense that this was high, secret, esoteric?
Yeah, I mean, I did, but I mean, from the simplest point of view, that I couldn't stand the idea of meditation. I thought that was very boring. Sitting there with your eyes closed, and me personally, sitting with your eyes closed, and I remember he made, during this in fact, the last teaching we had with him, the one I mentioned before, 6 Yogas in Naropa, which Bliss of Inner Fire is based on, Wisdom's book, in 1983, the last time I saw Lama, he made us do 5-minute Mahamudra sessions. And all I know is even then I had no idea what he's talking about. So even just something as simple as, it seems simple, but to watch your mind, I didn't know what he was talking about. What do you mean watch the mind? I'd say, annoyed to myself. I couldn't cope, you know. So I knew it was esoteric, and I knew Six Yogas was too, but he had this way of teaching that made you excited, and he made it accessible.
It had a way of teaching that made you excited.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was accessible as well.
Absolutely.
This is the incredible.
That was his skill. I know when I first heard the teachings, Lama Zopa teaching the Lam Rim for one entire month, intensive every day, and I went to every teaching. I really had no idea what to do with it all because it was so arcane, and I couldn't understand anything. But Lama would come along and give one short talk, and I would sigh with relief because he talked about the point of being a Buddhist. Surely is about the mind. The point of being a Buddhist is to lessen your delusions and grow your goodness. That's the bottom line. And Lama could express it in simple ways that way, which he got to the total essence.
Getting to the total essence.
Total essence.
And meeting you right where you're at, and then taking you very deep.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
So there's these Mahamudra teachings.
Yeah.
Were you there for those teachings?
Oh, I wasn't there for those. That was in Australia. Australia, 82, I think, 1982 was the first time, because he, of course, traditionally he would give a Hatha Yoga Tantra initiation. He gave him Haruka Chakra Samvara at this event in a town out of Melbourne. And but when you read the transcript, it was just everything. It was so easy to hear it. He made it easy to hear. He made it easy to understand, you know. So it was extraordinary.
What about this book? So, you know, you could go through the archive and pick any lecture that Lama gave. What was it that Mahamudra, these teachings, how did these jump out at you and you decide this is the book I want to make next?
Well, I suppose because it was a complete teaching. It was a text, and it was a popular topic, isn't it?
Yeah, very.
And because it's the essence. I mean, if we call it Mahamudra, but really, if you think about what being a Buddhist means, I remember one time Lama Yeshe said, when you get into the middle scope of the Lam Rim, should I keep talking?
Yeah.
You're ready.
Yeah.
So when you get into if you look at the Lam Rim and you look at the very first scope, it's all about the body and the speech, and karma, and be a good person, and live in vows and purify. But when you get to the middle scope, that's when you start to look at your mind, and really, that's the essence of being a Buddhist. That's as Lama said, that's when you really become a Buddhist. So Mahamudra is just a lovely, more esoteric, more sophisticated way of learning to do what being a Buddhist is, which is to know your mind and learn to change it. Isn't it really? I mean, that's all, you come down to it. And so what Lama did was not just talk about only Mahamudra insofar as realizing emptiness of the mind, but it's the Mahamudra approach that he showed. Using it in daily life, seeing your mind, you know. This is it. I mean, this is the part that's so special. But it takes a while, I think, even that that's when I first heard it. I didn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. Look at your mind. I thought, how boring, you know. I wanted to do it, but I didn't know what it meant. Because it takes a while. It sounds easy to say, look at your mind. But it's very hard because we're so addicted to the outside world. You don't want to look at your mind, you know. It's too boring.
Totally. It's sometimes the most profound instructions are very simple that you can miss them.
Absolutely. Like, there's no doubt about that.
What does that even
mean? I know. Look, that's exactly what does it mean?
can see my mind.
That's exactly.
So how did you unpack that? You know, look at your mind. You had these instructions and you were like, what does that mean? And
no, it's not easy. I remember when Lama Zopa said, this is really quoting him almost verbatim. He said the vast majority of all humans on the planet have absolutely no idea that what goes on in their mind plays any role at all in their lives. So of course we know that when it comes to carpentry and music, your mind plays a role, but not when it comes to being a happy person or an unhappy person. We don't, and that's a really shocking thought, but it's really true. We don't know even that what goes on in here plays any role at all. So to say, look at your mind is really quite puzzling in the beginning.
Totally. And it's true what you say, that we're not really aware of the mind and how it impacts our life.
That's right.
What a powerful force we're unaware of. There's this like powerful force that's really dictating how we live.
Dictating,
and we don't even see it.
That's it. That's the one that's shocking, isn't it? And that's I think why when we do hear these words, I wanted to be able to do it. I didn't know how to, but I love to hear it. And that's the thing with him. You love to hear his words. He made you. And the other thing I think that, and this is with Mahamudra too, when you talk about the nature of mind, even conventional nature, it's pretty delicious, you know. Yeah. And the way Lama talked about the mind as the mirror and all these things, which sound so exciting, it is really delicious. And you're hungry to hear it, and you're hungry to try and put it into practice. To talk about karma and the esoteric this and that, but to talk about your mind, how you feel and think, that was his expertise. There's just no question about it.
It's very interesting to almost everyone, because we know we have a mind. But we don't know much more than
I know, but we think it's this brain of ours, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we know. Yeah. So interesting, isn't it? I know.
Look at your mind. How help us unpack that? How would you go about unpacking?
Okay. Well, we have two things, isn't it? We have the outside world, and then we have our response to it. And our response to it is the mind. And this is where I really like to make this distinction, which we do when we study the epistemological model of the mind in Buddhism. And it's seemingly simple, but it's profound. When we first distinguish between sensory consciousness and mental consciousness, you know. So I would say, well, there's a pretty cup. And we all assume that without, you can see me looking at it, and we're assuming my eyes see a pretty cup. But when we study the mind, we know that the eye consciousness has only the capacity to cognize two things, shape and color. So we have to ask the question, which part of my mind is cognizing a pretty cup? Well, as Lama Yeshe says, that's the mental consciousness, and that's where the workshop is. Yeah. So I like to say, quicker than Google, what happens is my mental consciousness is accessed, my workshop, and all my memories are there, all my thoughts, all my opinions, all my ideas, and out comes the thought, a pretty cup. So it's a conceptual construct. Yeah. So that's how we live our lives. We live our lives experiencing the five objects of the five senses, and then we begin to have opinions about them. But of course, as Lama would say, the mirror of our mind, you know, polluted by attachment and polluted by anger, is interpreting or is reflecting wrongly. Yeah. So I think the mirror one is really exciting. The mirror works, that your mind is a mirror that reflects. Everything's a reflection. So if your mirror is crooked, if your mirror is dirty, then what appears to you is in that aspect.
It's a great.
These help.
Yeah.
You know.
So the mirror of the mind.
The mind is a mirror.
Yeah.
And everything everything out there, as Lama Zopa says, everything out there appears back to us in this mirror according to the state of the mirror. Yeah. So the mirror is crooked, the tree will look crooked. If there's anger there, the person will look ugly. We intellectually understand it, but because we're so addicted to believing that the appearance is coming from the outside, not from the mind. And these we can understand, and this is emptiness already. Yeah. So we can hear this. It's down to earth, very down to earth. But we can hear it, and we can learn it every day. It's true, but we just don't join the dots because we're addicted to our wrong views, you know.
Exactly. And the difference between a mirror and a mind is that the mind knows what it's reflecting, right? Whereas the mirror doesn't have any sort of subject.
Well, no, I mean, that's right. That's.
Yeah. But this is the conventional nature of the mind. Like
this is the conventional nature of the mind. Lama says, according to definition, the conventional is the definition of mind. That which has got two parts: that which is clear or luminous, and we get all excited about that, but it just means it's not physical. Yeah. And then that which cognizes. Yeah, yeah. So, but the hardest thing is, I think, because we are so addicted to when we see a cup that we think is pretty, it's obvious that we don't think our mind plays any role. We think we are seeing the truth, and the truth is pretty cup. We don't think it's an opinion. So really, when we look at our mind and we think the sensory and the mental, sensory are just facts, shape and color. Yeah. And then the mental is a bunch of opinions. And some are valid opinions and some are not.
Let me ask you this. Someone might say, okay, the eye sense sees shape and color. That's what it says in the text. Yeah. So I understand it sees color. How does the eye see shape? Isn't that conceptual as well? Isn't the mind getting involved?
Yeah, but the eye consciousness is not conceptualizing it. Yeah. What is called shape and what is called color is what can be they're not stating it shape and color. Yeah, yeah. Stating shape and color are true. That's a mental construct. But bare bones shape and color are just that's okay.
Yes. Yeah, so you start with shape and color, and somehow you get to cup.
But that's mental consciousness.
That's mental consciousness.
So that kicks in quicker than Google, kicks in. Yeah. And then because I've got a memory and opinions, then I will have an opinion. I'll say it is a pretty cup. But it all happens in a billionth of a second. This is the trouble. We can't distinguish. Yeah. We don't even realize the senses. We just think the senses are seeing everything. We just think everything is sensory. Yeah. Beauty, it's not. It's really not, actually. It can't be. Yeah. Can't be. Just shape and color and sound and smells and tastes. And the rest is mental consciousness. Mm. And then when to hear, I think it's so nice to realize we live at the grossest level, which is conceptuality. And that's what I find fascinating. That's what we find really hard to hear, is that emotions are conceptual. So in the West, we go intellect and then we go emotions. Yeah. But they're all conceptually based. And that's where we can start to see, with a bit of concentration, doing our mindfulness on our breath, we start to hear the conceptual stories that underpin the feelings.
Yeah.
And that's when we start. And that's what Buddha's expertise is.
Yeah.
Even just doing your breathing meditation can get you to begin to hear the conceptual constructs that inform that feeling.
Yeah.
Which is when the body. So we only know what we think. We only know we've got anger when it's out the mouth, or when you're shaking, you know, and that's the physical. That's why we think feelings are so special.
Yeah. So when we're doing this and we're looking at shape and color and we're coming up with cup, that's thinking, right? But then
that's the mental
that's
conceptual
consciousness. And then there's also feeling as well. So what's the relationship here with the thinking cup and the feeling?
Well, feeling is the pleasure. It's only two, pleasure or pain.
Yeah.
Okay, forget indifferent.
Yeah.
So that's depending upon the karmic connection with these types of, I suppose, shapes and colors and the opinions I've developed about them. A pleasant feeling is triggered. So if I'm a fisherman, this is interesting. I'm having a discussion with young Sumishe. You know, the 12 links. So you make contact with the fishing. There's a little boy, and the next millisecond feeling, contact determines whether it's pleasant or unpleasant based upon the intensity of the past action. So an intense, pleasant feeling for him because of his past killing, and then attachment kicks in, and then we're lost. You know, so it has to be feeling has to come. That comes at the same time, doesn't it? Contact, then feeling, then attachment. But it's also quick.
So this is really nice.
Contact first, then feeling, then attachment. But in 1/1000th of a second, as if they're the same. But it seems to be that dependent upon the intensity. This is what was helpful. The fishing looks good to that boy.
Yeah.
The contact triggers it pleasant, and that equals the intensity of his karmic connection with killing. Okay. That's the killer.
So this was a boy who was fishing, who liked
since a little boy, he met fishing for the first time and fell in love with it.
Yeah.
So the moment he met fishing, he hadn't thought of killing before. Yeah. So contact, and then instantly incredibly pleasant feelings. Yeah. And that equals the intensity of his past action. Yeah. The intensity of his habit.
Contact can sound weird to people, so
I know it's
true, that. So what we're really talking about is engaging with an object, the sense that
that's all it is. The mind and the object come together, isn't it? Yeah. And but I didn't realize that, but the contact apparently is what determines the intensity of the next one, which is the pleasant or the pleasure or the pain.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and then attachment kicks in.
Yeah, because always we're having this sort of then attachment. So contact. So basically seeing something. Yeah.
Then feeling pleasant or
unpleasant. And then I have attachment.
And then attachment or aversion, whatever. Right. Or that craving has to be.
Yeah. And it's one thing to do with cups, right? I see a cup. I see something. Cup, and then I like this cup. But it's a different when it's like it happens also when someone walks in the room, right?
Straight away, isn't it?
So and so.
Aversion arises immediately.
Yeah.
So it's a karmic connection, isn't it?
And the way we feel, the way we conceive people as they walk in the room, and the way we feel about them, you know, is what determines feeling, friend, foe.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. I suppose there's intensity of the. That's right. It's true, isn't it? But Lama didn't talk much about this in Mahamudra. He just talked. The whole time in Mahamudra, I remember from the teachings, he talked about how you see your mind, you know, just to watch your mind. I don't know, but isn't this, the thing is, I don't know, but isn't that taught even out of Mahamudra? Isn't that what people talk about, using the method of just observing and no opinions and things? That's not even a Mahamudra teaching, is it?
No, that's not Mahamudra.
It's a sutra teaching, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think the difference here you're pointing to is that we're deconstructing the external world and our experience of it. Yeah. Whereas Mahamudra goes straight to the mind in a way.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it talks about, like in the book, Lama explains, and you put it quite nicely, is that, you know, there's one approach where you deconstruct the world, and then you have this view, and then you take that view into meditation.
That's right.
But with Mahamudra,
the opposite.
As I said, you start with the meditation.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you find the view.
I know, but I find that really tricky, actually. It's really true. The way I like it, this is what Lama said, this sounds so delicious. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to study. I've done my prostrations. I just do my Mahamudra. No, he says, not like that. And my feeling is, because Panchen Lama says this, he says there's two methods, I forget his words, two ways of realizing emptiness. Yeah. One is squeeze the brain, which is how we learn everything. Learn the theories, and then go on the cushion and get the taste. Yep. And the other one is go straight to the cushion and get the taste, and then you can work out the theories later or something. Yep. But I think that's a bit like, which sounds lovely, but it's a bit like, you know, the typical way of studying Bach. Yeah. You squeeze your brain with these incredibly intense, complicated theories, and then you go play the piano. But can you imagine the opposite, going straight to the piano, no theory, and intuiting Bach? Maybe, that shows how advanced it is.
Maybe it's an advanced practice. Yeah.
It is from that perspective. Yeah. That is really obvious. So I can say for myself very clearly, when I first went to that class, the Wisdom in the Fire, 83, and we did these 5-minute Mahamudra sessions, I didn't have a clue when he'd say, find the I, I get pissed off.
Yeah,
what do you mean find the I? I did not have, but only after I did study. And 45, 50 years later, can I now begin to understand a little bit. So Mahamudra isn't. No, it's just typical. I'm a typical person.
Yeah, it's super advanced. And they seem to work off each other because you do have this standard, you go to teachings, then you contemplate these teachings, and then you meditate them. If you start with meditation, like, you know, what are you to do, right?
And so it seems to me the only person who's qualified to get some experience from Mahamudra from the beginning is a person who's got some past history with it. So the irony is, it seems the only person who can go to the piano and intuit Bach, who's already the one who knows the theories. But I suppose we need to do it though, and go past past the intellect, and just sit and try to watch the I come.
I think, and I think there's something to this, is that, you know, we could start with cups, we can start with people walking, or you could start with your mind, right? Yes. But if you start with your mind, then your mind can be like quite crazy. So you got to calm it down first.
Well, that's right. That's
and then you start to say, well, what is the mind?
That's right.
Right. And then once you find, when you sort of get some sort of like idea of what the mind isn't, or, you know, it's not form.
I know, but it's really hard to say what it is. I mean, as His Holiness says, I remember in I think in his commentary on the other one, no, Mahamudra, Panchanama text. He said it's already fine to talk about the mind like we do, but to actually experience your mind, that's conventional. That's sophisticated. Because if you can't see it or smell it or taste it or touch it, it's very hard to say you can know it, you know. We can just know the evidence of it, the signs of it, which is the thoughts, you know.
Well, something you started to say, and it's an interesting sort of question, is, you know, you hear these Mahamudra instructions, but then you hear these like other instructions, just like, what is the definition of like mindfulness? The normal mindfulness that the secular world talks about, the non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. Something
is that what they say?
I think that's their definition.
Non-judgmental
awareness of the present. You could have that wrong, but
this is just so much rubbish.
Yeah, so then
it's a rubbish definition. Low Reed just says it's a mental factor that keeps you on track, not forgetting something. Excuse me.
Mindfulness as
thank you very much.
Yes.
As a mental factor. I prefer Buddha's definition.
Yeah.
Go on.
But if you're comparing that with the Mahamudra instructions, like look at your mind. So what's the difference between look at your mind and the non-judgmental awareness?
I just think that's that's totally boring. That to me, that's like an infantile. Oh, you can't criticize. You might have a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
I would like to bloody well see my mind, please, and immediately see there's anger and stop it, and there's love and increase it. I mean, we've got to not be so infantile. Like we're such precious little people, we can't bear to criticize.
Well, firstly, I think in Buddhism we are we're very discerning about what thoughts and things we want, what the contents of my mind. There's things to accept and things to reject.
Yeah, that's right.
And we can't. But when you see these instructions, like in Mahamudra, where it's saying, well,
it does say just watch.
It does say just watch, but it's doing it so that you can see something, right?
As opposed to what?
It's so that so you don't judge and you don't accept, so that you can get a better understanding of the mind, right? It's about calming the mind down.
Well, I suppose, isn't it? So Lama says you just start with whatever arises in your mind. So of course that's for most of us is crazy thoughts.
Yeah.
So the object, eventually he says the object, the valid object of your mind in the first phase of the meditation, the shamatha level, is the conventional nature. And that's subtle.
Totally.
That's really subtle. So you've got to start with what's there, which is the crazy thoughts. So you just simply observe the crazy thoughts and let them come and let them go.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the non-judgmental part. Yes.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
Because if to observe a thought, it means to not judge it, because as soon as you start judging the thought, you're on a new thought.
Yeah, as soon as you're judging it, you're leaping into having a conversation with it.
Yeah, you're moved on, so you can't see that thought.
No, that's right.
So then if you don't judge, you just watch that thought.
That's right.
And then if you watch that thought, you see the nature of that thought. There's where insight starts to come in. You see the
nature of that thought being.
You see what thought is. It comes, it stays, it arises. Where does it come from? Where does it go? You know, you're starting to ask about what is the mind.
True, then.
Yeah, so then you're getting this understanding of the conventional nature of mind. So like, you know, thoughts can feel so concrete.
Oh, yes, for sure. That's the point. No, I see what you're saying. No, that's right. We think they're like Mount Everest, absolute concrete, solid, and they're totally true, which is why we want to kill each other or ourselves.
Yeah.
No, this is right, isn't it?
And so what you're talking about, we see shapes and colors and we go cup, right? Like cup is like a thought as well.
Cup is only the thought.
A cup is only.
I mean, shape and color is not a thought. Shape and color is the object of eye consciousness.
Yes.
And then mental consciousness kicks in and then describes it.
Yeah, So then if you can do this and you can see thought, then you're capturing that aspect of what you're talking about, right? Cup.
Yes.
Cup. What's cup?
Well, there, but you're not. Well, so I'm getting lost now.
Yeah, no, we're just exploring. I'm not going anywhere.
No, okay.
I'm just exploring. But the thing is, so in Mahamudra practice, we're calming the mind and we're seeing the conventional nature of mind, and we're seeing these thoughts. And then something you said here is thought leads to attachment. You know, where does karma? You also teach very nicely on karma. Where does karma come into this equation as well? Because we don't hear much about karma in
not
Mahamudra.
at all. Lama doesn't even mention the word almost, because it's not the point.
Yeah.
But I suppose the only way to say that would be that the intent. So okay, if we're looking at your ability to sit at the piano, and intuit Bach,
yes,
we know you don't need to say it, but we know that your capacity to do it is informed by your past practice. So that's where karma is.
Yeah.
The intensity of your past practice is obviously the biggest thing that informs your ability to play the piano.
Yeah.
So clearly, that's why for me, that's what that goes without saying, is your past. What you bring to that at that moment is coming from your past practice. And that's it. And
so this is going back to this boy who loved fishing, right?
Yeah.
So he had contact
with that thing called fishing. Never thought of killing until he met the fishing. And within a millisecond, then the next one is pleasure, intense pleasure. And then next second is attachment, paints a divine picture. And now he's found the truth of his life. He's going to do it again because it gave him pleasure.
Yeah.
And that's another discussion there. But that's the thing, that intensity. That's what blew my mind. The intensity of the pleasure equals the intensity of the habit.
Yeah.
I mean, the best we can say is we get attached to food, and we're not attached to killing.
Yeah.
Aren't we fortunate?
Yeah, very.
You know.
And the pleasure, the actual pleasure, you said it comes from the intensity of what?
The intensity, the amount of pleasure.
Yeah.
Comes from the habit of that much killing. So I remember Robert Hughes, an Australian journalist who was the Time magazine arts writer for like 50 years. A few years ago. He's dead now. He was a writer and very eloquent. And I remember he wrote about how when he first went trout fishing, it was a cosmic experience. So meaning he literally got incredible pleasure from watching fish kill. So that means he must have had intensely strong habit to kill. That's where the karma comes in.
So the strong pleasure is the result of previous karma.
The strong pleasure equals the intensity of the habit from the past, which is karma.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's exactly right.
So you have contact.
Yep.
Then you have feeling.
Yes.
That feeling is the result of past karma.
The intensity of the feeling.
The intensity of the feeling.
How much feeling. Feeling happens every millisecond. But the strength of the pleasure is equal to the strength of the past habit. That's what I meant.
Okay.
The pleasure. There's either pleasure or pain or neutral. There's no fourth option, and they're happening every millisecond. Yeah. But the intensity of how much pleasure is equal to the intensity of the past.
So I imagine as pleasure as pain is like a spectrum, right?
Yeah, it is.
And so every moment we're having a feeling.
One of those,
One of those, right?
Yes.
And then there's a slider on the spectrum,
It is, it's true.
And karma is in control of this slider.
The intensity, it seems to be the intensity of the pleasure or the pain. Yeah, equals the past action. Yes, the intensity of the past action.
Depending on your past action, when you come in contact with fishing, depending on your...
In his case, it was...
Yeah, and then the slider goes way up to high pleasure.
That's right, exactly right.
And then once you have high pleasure, you have high attachment.
And then you're locked into samsara. And that's it. Straight back to the lower realms. That's the tragedy. Yeah. So it's all informed by karma, but that's very hard for the West to understand, because we tend to think if it's informed by karma, we have no choice. This is the commonest question I ever get. Yeah. Oh, therefore there's no free will, we say,
Yeah. So how do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I explain you better see the source of this free will concept, and it's coming from Jesus Christ. So give respect to Jesus Christ. Therefore, from the Buddhist perspective, it's a meaningless idea. Free means not dependent. It's a nonsense idea. Yeah. But it takes us a while to hear how that the question. I don't want to go there. It's a boring.
Okay.
Keep going.
Let's stay Mahamudra.
The nature of mind.
So then we've talked about how the mind works, basically. How the mind works.
Well, we've got sensory consciousness and we have mental.
We have sensory and
sensory, and then our mental is kicking in every millisecond and interpreting the objects of the five senses every second. And the tragedy is we don't realize it's an interpretation. We think it's in the object itself. We think it's the truth. That's the killer.
And the fact that it's not is like a teaching on emptiness. Right?
Virtually.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then so how does this relate to the Mahamudra? Like when does emptiness come into Mahamudra?
Oh, okay. Well, Mahamudra, first of all, is a synonym for emptiness, basically. And it's finally the emptiness of the mind. But this is also where Lama was so kind. When he first taught this, and this is my opinion, nobody, when he first taught this in 1982 in Australia, nobody had done any study. We never heard of Dura or Lorig or Tarig, but out of his kindness. So he never, he always just, whenever he'd say in the text, he'd say, see the emptiness of the, sometimes he'd say consciousness, sometimes he'd say mind, and sometimes he'd say the self. He put them all together because there's no point in going, we wouldn't even know the difference between the self and the consciousness, you know. But this, but I suppose this is the important point, isn't it? In Mahamudra, you first look into, and that's what Panchen Lama says, you sit there, get your concentration, and then when your mind is ready, a little bit calm, you have this, as Lama so sweetly called it, I'll never forget, your mindfulness fish, or a subtle wisdom, as Panchen Lama says, like this kind of like looking out of the corner of your eye. You stay focused on the mind, but this subtle part of your mind is now going to be watching, and you do first, you try to catch the way I appears to you.
Yeah.
So that's what he mainly talked about. He hardly really talked about the emptiness of the mind at all. Yeah. So that you catch how it appears to you. You catch how it appears to you. But that's where you, unless you know theoretically what that means, it's meaningless. That's when Lama first said, see how the I appears. You've got to have some framework for that. So unless you're a highly advanced practitioner, I can't imagine anybody could do that. What does it mean? Because what it means is as something independent. Yeah. But you don't know that.
This is the magic of Mahamudra, but because normally what we would think about, we talk about cups and the empty. Well, you explain quite nicely what the emptiness of the cup is by understanding the process of how we arrive at cup in our mind.
First then the mental, that's right.
Yeah. So we understand the cup. We can also do this on the self in a similar way. Daniel, I'm not my body. Daniel could only be his body or mind. He's not his body. He's not his mind, right? But this is not a. This is just a. Daniel's just another image in my mind, right? A concept.
Yeah.
But in Mahamudra, what you explained to us is you're actually looking at the experience of yourself, of Daniel.
You're watching the mind. You never vary from that. Yeah. And then when you're steady, you allow this little out of the corner of your eye. Yeah. Your mindfulness fish moving through the water without disturbing it, as Panchen Lama says, and it's just watching to try to catch how I feel. Yeah. I think it's really subtle.
And it's almost...
You've got to have someone come along and punch you in the nose, then you can catch it, maybe. Yeah. But sitting there quietly, it's too hard to catch it. Yeah. So from that perspective, it's super sophisticated.
Experiential as well.
Totally. I mean, it's totally experiential.
Yeah, it's not theoretical. And I think this is the difference.
You're not squeezing your brain at all to try and analyze.
And I think this is when the Panchen Lama says, you can start with the view and meditate.
That's right.
Start with theory and meditate.
And then...
Or you can start with the actual experience.
But it's quite sophisticated, because if you don't, like I said, when I first heard this from 1982, and Lama was teaching 6 yogas, and he made us do 5-minute sessions, which is also really good. Yeah. Instead of, because I think we're so addicted in the West to thinking that meditation is relaxation. Yeah. And if you feel good, you think, I had a good meditation. Yeah. That's just rubbish. Yeah. Whereas 5 minutes quality, really working on it, 5 minutes is incredible. So he makes us do these 5, and I just sat there totally annoyed. Yeah. I didn't know what it meant. He said, try and find the eye. I just didn't know where to look. I had to hear the teachings first. So my mind was very sick, you know. Yeah. But some people, if you're a practitioner, some people, that's why they talk about the Kargyupas. They're more experience-oriented, isn't it? They say the Kargyupas, they go straight to their practice. Yeah. They don't have any teaching. They get all their nundros. I mean, it's a bit cliched. Yeah. And they go straight to their practice. I mean, they must have some karma to do it. Yeah. Whereas, as Lama Yeshe says, we Gelug squeeze our brains. Yeah. I find that very satisfying. I find it much more satisfying. Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much.
Having that structure, right?
I love it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Now I can begin to theoretically understand this. Yeah. Because I've got the teachings. But without it, I didn't know what it meant. Look for your eye. Observe the eye. I just was puzzled. I got annoyed. Yeah. So it's quite sophisticated.
So the answer to look for your eye, look for the eye.
Watch it. See how, observe how it, they say how it appears to you. We'd say how it feels.
Yeah. So look for your eye is like catch yourself feeling as someone, right?
What?
Like catch yourself feeling as, catch that feeling of being an I, right? Catch that feeling of I.
Catch the feeling of how does I feel? How does it seem to you? Yeah. How does it seem to exist?
Yeah. So you're actually working with this feeling, this seeming. Then what do you do?
Well, Lama says, First, he said, he does this analysis. He says, first you think it's the, Tsongkhapa says, first you think it's the body, then you think it's the mind, then you're even, in a sense, doing some kind of elimination.
Yeah.
It isn't the body, it isn't the mind, it isn't this, it isn't that, it's not the combination. And then he says, at some point, you might get a flash,
Yeah.
a moment, and then you hold it, and it'll disappear again. So you go back to just watching, you know.
Yeah.
But it seems to me, if you do get the, okay, this is what I find fascinating. In the sutras, in the Lamrim, it says there are the 4-point analysis, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
You have to first establish what you think the I is.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Then you have to search for it, and there's only 2 options: either oneness with or separate from the parts. But as Lama says, and they all say that's the main one, and as Lama says in Mahamudra, that once you've clearly established what you think the I is, that second you will realize its absence.
Yep.
That second you will realize emptiness. So really the first one is the main one,
Yep.
trying to work out what the hell it is.
And
once you got that super clear, then you're okay.
And it's very interesting because the instruction in like a normal Lamrim text to identify the
object to be negated, which is what's happening here.
And the way you normally do that is to imagine someone falsely accusing you of something.
Because it brings it up.
It brings it up, right?
That's right.
So
exactly.
so then you brings it up and then you go, oh, I got something to work with now, right?
Well, you're trying to then catch, and that's really what you should be doing in Mahamudra. You're trying to catch.
So they're connected in a way.
Oh, totally the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing,
Yeah.
except you don't do the analysis in the Mahamudra. But that's exactly what it is. And that's where I think, that's where I try to find ordinary examples, because we mystify this emptiness business. And so my feeling is, you know, I use, for example, they say if you know, okay, you can't find the absence of the independent I.
Yeah.
You can't identify the absence, you can't recognize, you can't realize the absence of the independent I until you first established what the independent I is, which is the conventional nature. In other words, I could ask you to go look for my iPad. I left it on the table with the other devices, and you go in there and there are 54 devices on that table.
Mm-hmm.
You could look until the cows come home for my iPad, but until you know exactly how to identify my iPad, that's the thief one they talk about.
Yeah.
You've got to identify, you've got to have an exact picture of what my iPad is, and then in 1 second you will have either 2 options. Either you will find the iPad and give it back to me, or you will find the absence of the iPad. And you can never find the absence of the iPad until you know what the iPad is, and that's exactly the same in Mahamudra.
Yeah, this is the same.
You cannot, it's exactly the same, but you've got to be able to identify exactly, and when you have, which means you've identified an I that's independent, finally, of the mind calling it that.
Yeah.
And once you've identified that second, you will realize its absence.
Yes. Yeah.
So the first point's the main one.
Yeah, this is very insightful, because it is hard to know. Well, look at your mind. Why? What am I doing? Look, these instructions. Look at your mind.
Well, I suppose, I mean, the regular reason, isn't it, is to know what to, I mean, I always love to use the word, what is the word? I always thought it was the word Buddha, but somebody pointed out my mistake. It's the word Sangye, the etymology of that.
Yeah.
Sang implies the eradication of the neuroses,
Yeah.
and Gye implies the development to perfection of all the goodness. So that tells you your job right there.
Yeah.
And that's what we hear, know what to eliminate and know what to do and know what to practice.
Yeah.
So therefore our main job is to be able to distinguish in the mind, because there's only virtues, non-virtues and neutral. There's only 3 categories of mind.
Yeah.
And already this is mind-boggling. It's not how neuroscience talks. So we have to distinguish between the delusion, the affliction and the virtue. That's it. So therefore that's the Mahamudra. Well, no, that's the approach of being a Buddhist. Identifying that this I can be comfortable with. Identify the bloody I, it's too complicated. I can identify anger, identify jealousy, even the story it says, but to identify the assumption of an I that informs that is really quite difficult.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So I think we've got to start with the branch stubs. If we're going to identify attachment, which is just the voice of I, that's all, that's good enough. Identify the voices of the I, you know. That has to be the first step.
Start there.
That's the middle scope.
Start with the voices of the I.
That's already profound. To begin to analyze this cup and to know that the beautiful cup is a fabrication. The beautiful cup. Forget the ego grasp. Forget the ignorance one. But the beautiful cup is an opinion that my concepts have, as Lama Zopa says, the delusions, all of them, decorate on top of what is there, layers upon layers of characteristics that just aren't there. That is so delicious. And that can be really all our day we can be doing. And that's the Mahamudra approach, if you like.
Yeah.
And then easily you can begin to see the more subtle delusion, the Marika, the one that says that, yeah, you understand. So, because even attachment is not, we even think deliciousness is coming from the cake. Forget about independent deliciousness. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So this is, it's so tasty, isn't it?
Yeah.
That I can be happy with, but seeing the bloody eye, forget it,
Yeah.
You see the evidence of the eye.
Yeah, you see the tracks of the eye.
Yeah, the tracks of the eye. You can see the tracks of it. You can see the consequences of it. You can see the implication. You can see, but that's why attachment and aversion, the two main poisons, are the voices of I.
Yeah.
So they're the ones we can be shocked. And then it's easier to get to the I once you get those. And we can't even identify those.
Yeah.
And I have to say, mostly us among Buddhists, we don't study Lorig.
Yeah.
We think attachment is love. We think attachment is being kind. We're just completely confused about what it is. We don't even use the idea of virtue and non-virtue. So we don't like that in psychology. It sounds judgmental,
Can you see, like you say, we've got to start with seeing the, the tracks of the eye. Can you see them? Can you only see the tracks of the mind as well, or can you see the mind?
What do you mean?
Like,
what do you mean?
Like, what does it mean to see the mind? Like, if we're seeing anger, are we seeing the mind?
The only way I can say it is I'm hearing. For me, this is what works
Yeah.
because my mind is intellectual and I find conceptual. We are conceptual, so I can when I hear. When I'm feeling annoyed with somebody, you feel we say it's called a feeling. When we mean because the body's feeling it, kind of a feeling. But we've got to go beyond that. And so what I then have to listen to is the actual words that anger is saying. He did this and he did that. And what I mean is he's saying something that my attachment doesn't want. Because that's why I find it so helpful to realize that aversion, I heard one Lama just say it in passing, and Lama Zopa say it in passing, and I've grabbed hold of this. For me, it's profound, that anger or aversion is the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants. So the default is attachment, this dissatisfaction, emotional hunger, and it's at the level of so primordial, and it's basically a fragile child that can only cope with everything being nice. And of course, nice means what I think is nice. And the millisecond it doesn't get that, which is 1,000 times a day, aversion is what arises. So when that one blew my mind, then we can really begin to understand the workings of attachment and aversion. And 1,000 times we go between them. And the aversion one, we mightn't be what's called an angry person, so you don't think you're angry, but we all got aversion, which is annoyed, upset, frustrated, irritated, polite words for aversion. And everybody's got it, but no one thinks they're angry.
Yes.
But it's called anger, just mild anger, that's all. And it's what attachment doesn't want. So attachment is this child's fragile, needy, fragile little being in there that only wants what I want every millisecond. So it also proves how totally self-centered it is, which should be embarrassing to us.
Yeah, just different intensities.
And seeing this, for me, attachment and aversion, it's all I ever talk about. I kind of feel I'm a fraud. People are going to catch me one day realizing I'm talking about the same thing all the time.
Yeah. But we need it.
We have, I mean, time to say it a bit better. And then I think this then leads us naturally to then get to the subtler one, because they're the voices, they're the assumptions of the, these are at the level of assumption, basically, and they're all rooted in the assumption of a separate I.
Yeah.
They're the voices of a separate I.
Seeing the voices is powerful as well, rather than just intellectualizing.
I think they are just that. And they're stories the whole time. And they're there, ever more subtle, ever more subtle, ever more subtle. And all we can do is start with where we are. We can't go further. You've got to go. And every time you listen, and that's the biggest one, I think, in our culture. We only know we're angry when the words are vomiting out the mouth. Or we only know we're depressed when you are inert in bed and can't move. In other words, we only know what our mind is doing when our body feels it. And that's why we romanticize and mystify feelings in our culture. But the feelings are just the physical body. And when we understand the tantric view of them, of the subtle winds inextricably linked with the subtle minds, then, I mean, it's too late. It's like sort of not realizing. I always use the example, we only notice it's like you're going 100 miles an hour on the freeway and you've never heard of mechanics. And you've never bothered to watch the wheels wobbling, and you only go, oh, my wheels are falling off. What'll I do? The commonest question to say is, I'm having a fight with my boyfriend. What'll I do? Well, that's the wheels falling. It's too late. So all Buddha does is give us his techniques to calm the mind down enough that we can see the thoughts that before they become feelings. And that's what we don't have. We wait till the wheels fall off to go to the therapist. That's our tragedy in our
Yeah.
culture. Is why we go kill ourselves and each other.
Yes, we need
So
to.
even if we use just a breathing meditation,
Yep.
just to calm down a bit and see your bloody mind and grab it before it gets to the mouth, that's a miracle. That's the miracle.
This makes total sense. We talk about Mahamudra. Why does the Panchen Lama talk about the conventional nature of mind? Why? Because it seems like he goes conventional nature of mind, and then selflessness of
First,
the person.
I,
Yeah.
and then the mind.
Then yes.
No, but Lama mentions it here. It's something in there. There's a bit in there. He says, Tsongkhapa, I wish I could remember the words, but he says there's something extraordinary. Tsongkhapa's pointing out, but there's something incredible about the conventional nature of mind that is almost as if you're realizing emptiness. There's something so, because the mind is so incredible. This non-physical capacity for cognition is so extraordinary that the experience of observing, more than anything else, just observing the conventional character of the mind is almost as if you realize emptiness. There's something so powerful about it. It can lead you easily.
Yeah. And there's sort of thing where people have the sense that maybe when they start thinking about these things that, well, what am I? Well, maybe I'm this mind that continues, right? And so there's this sense that, oh, you know, I'm this flowing consciousness. But
well, yeah, that's it. I know when I first heard the Dharma from Lama Zopa, and I'd been through this all these years of political activity, trying to sort of really find a way to see the world, you know, first Catholic, then hippie, then communist, then these and things. And that was how I identified myself. You identify yourself in these ways, right? I am this, I am that, I'm this. And then because I'd been a radical feminist, it was quite shocking to go to this first teaching and the monks sit in front of the nuns, and you understand, it was very shocking for me. And then after hearing about karma, which I felt I'd missed in my life, I love the view of karma from the very beginning, then it dawned on me. You know, not only am I not intrinsically female, I'm not even intrinsically human, that my mind is what I am, and that has got no character of male, female, dog, good or bad. That for me was very tasty.
The mind is who I am.
Your mind is who we are. We identify with our consciousness, with our capacity for cognition.
But then you do this Mahamudra practice, and then you relate it to that, because you get in touch with this cognition, this clear and knowing mind, and then you realize that this is not even me either. Yeah.
No, that's right. You do. Well, you start, if you can be forgiven for thinking that the mind is the I.
Yes.
Because it's closer, but it's a good step.
Yeah,
We've got to even go beyond that and realize that no, that the mind can't be the I, because if they were synonymous, then why would you bother saying I have a mind? It's a contradiction, you know.
Exactly.
So, but it's moving towards discovering the merely labeled I. We've got to get to the merely labeled I. That's it.
And still, like you said earlier before we came on, we're all works in progress. We're all working.
Yeah, that's right. That's
so there's this selflessness, but we're works in progress. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean?
That's a conventional one. I think that the way, because we've got such, as Buddha would tell us, such intense grasping at permanent me, forget inherent me, which is even more subtle, such intense grasping at me set in stone, this big lump of me, unchanging, plodding through life every day, feeling like the same me as yesterday, you know? So that's the one of grasping at permanent, forget inherent. So that already, and that means we take everything, and then second, the feeling that the delusions are so tremendous and so powerful, and that they define us and that they dominate our mind. I mean, I always joke and say I've never yet met a person who says I can't stop thinking good thoughts. You understand? So the crazy thoughts are always there. The crazy roommates are always there. And then because they're so, and this is the tragedy, because they sound very loud, we believe that they're true. We believe that they're the concrete truth, which is why we kill ourselves. So that's the first one, and that's about emptiness, to even realize, yes, there's angry thoughts there, yes, there's jealous thoughts there, but they're just opinions. They're conceptual stories. But see, that's what I find fascinating. That has to be fascinating. 27 people can tell you you're a nice person, right? We're hungry to hear it, but we do not believe it. One person says you're a creep, and we believe it totally, 1,000,000,000%, which proves how we think about ourselves. So that's another point. The only way I can think is the irony of ego is that it's disturbed and distressed and distorted and limited, and negative in its nature, and they're the dominant voices in us. I mean, I don't know what I'm just saying. I'm just making this point. And our tragedy is that we believe they're true. So even this is where the first one, just observe the thoughts and no judgment. That's pretty good. That's not bad. That's pretty clever.
It's quite.
But then that's why also I like to hear about the mirror of the mind. It's such a delicious one, that everything is out there as a reflection of what's in my mind. But finally, I just find it so delicious to hear. I know when I gave a talk years ago in Melbourne, I was asked by the Catholic university there to give this little talk because they knew I'd been a Catholic. And I didn't know what I was going to talk about. And the morning I got there, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I looked up the dictionary, and it was the definition of God: infinite wisdom, infinite compassion, infinite power. I thought, well, isn't that interesting? That's what Buddha has found. That's the qualities of a Buddha. The difference is we can all become one. Don't need to be created. So my talk was the similarity between the definition of God and Buddha. I don't know if the Catholics liked it, but what I'm saying is, I love the idea of consciousness being not physical, and then when it's no longer contaminated by, when it's no longer limited by all the rubbish, it literally can only exist where there is. It can only exist wherever there is existence. It can't not. So therefore, it is everywhere. As a kid, I used to love the idea that God is everywhere. This is the same. So the Dharmakaya, it's pure cognition, not a millimeter of pollution. It can only exist wherever there is existence. It can only exist, and therefore can only know whatever does exist, which is all minds of all beings, all past, all present, all future, and can only be infinitely compassionate because there's no separate sense of I, no delusions. And apart from the power one, that's very appealing. That's appealing. That's who we really are. That's our true nature.
Infinite wisdom, infinite
wisdom. Forget the power one. Infinite wisdom, infinite compassion. That's who we really are.
Very interesting, because often you see this set of 3 deities, Manjushri for wisdom,
and power is also
Vajrapani.
I know, but also Tara.
So you have
Tara's power.
So you do have this set of 3 in Buddhism of infinite wisdom, Manjushri, infinite compassion.
But the same as the Christians. But the difference is they don't talk about God manifesting. Well, they do in a way. They say God manifests all over the universe as different things. But the difference is Buddha says we can all become one of those. So that's very appealing. That for me is a technical point, that that's what our mind really is. When it's uncontaminated, when it's no longer limited by all the rubbish, it can only exist wherever there is existence. It is everywhere. It knows everything automatically as it exists, no mistake. And it incidentally has the power to manifest in trillions of forms throughout trillions of universes for the sake of trillions of sentient beings for trillions of eons.
Can Mahamudra practice get us in touch with this?
That's what the point is. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
That'll get us to get to there. That's our true nature. That's our true nature. In other words, baseline is Buddhahood. Everything less than Buddha is deluded. Now, that really is the point. That is really the Buddhist point.
Love it.
Isn't it? That's who we really are. That is who we really are. That's what Buddha means. That's it. And I can't wait.
Lama had this beautiful way of talking about Mahamudra in daily life. Maybe we can finish our part of the conversation.
Yeah, go
on this. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
What he meant was being a Buddhist and observe your thoughts and don't buy into them. So I suppose that's the one. Observe your thoughts, catch yourself, and don't buy into them. I think that's the Mahamudra approach.
This seems an important practice for us because, most of us can't spend time up in the mountain top meditating.
No.
We're living our lives. And so as we go about our lives, trying to watch our minds, maybe that's
our main job. I mean, that is our main job.
Yeah.
And once we get used to it, it's not difficult. I mean, and then we just go according to our capacity. So we have to be aware from the second we wake up in the morning, not just to the coffee, but to the response to the coffee.
Yes.
So understand? So notice. I mean, I know it's the first thing I wake up in the morning, and you notice. I'm doing my practice. I love doing my water bowls. I love doing my practice. But in my mind is my thought of breakfast. There's no question.
Yeah.
You see this. I mean, you see this. So you notice your mind. You just observe it. That's it. I mean, that's seeing your mind. Because if your mind is what determines whether you're happy or suffering, and that's technically what Buddha's saying, then we've got no choice but to see our mind and try and change it, because it's not set in stone.
Real hands-on practice. This feels like real hands-on practice.
The point. This is really the one. Forget about the cushion. I mean, not forget about the cushion. And that's the other point I like to talk to people about, just to finish, is that we talk about preliminary practice and get very confused. But it shows how advanced it is to see the mind. So for me, it's a bit like I'm 20 kilos overweight and I've never heard of tennis, and I go to Federer, please show me how to play tennis. Well, he will then immediately say, go and spend 6 months or a year learning how to do this and do push-ups and go to the university and learn about tennis theory and lose weight and learn about nutrition. And I'll say, you didn't hear me, Roger. Show me how to play tennis. Yeah. And he'll repeat his answer. That's the preliminaries. And that, for me, I can really see the difference between now and 50 years later. I've done a few preliminaries and a bit of practice and done a bit of purification, a little bit, and a bit of virtue. Now I can begin to think, wow, okay, there's the I. So it takes time, We need the preliminaries. That's why in this life I have no interest in going on retreat. It's a totally boring idea. For me, it's a no-brainer that I have to create I'm still doing the preliminaries, in other words, which is all the hard work and the purification and teaching, and doing the teaching, which is preliminaries, and editing Lama's books, which is preliminaries. Yeah. And then I'll be ready maybe next life to go into retreat and get Mahamudra quickly. Who knows?
This is really important. I can't help but ask you this question, but you bring up these preliminary practices, right? And so important. Yeah, you gotta lose the weight before February.
You've got to prime your mind. Our mind's not ready, That's why it's clear.
Yeah.
I wanted to see my mind, but I heard this word, see your mind. I don't know what he was talking about. So it's taken me all these years because of a bit of purification to begin to hear the word.
So then
pick up the racket.
The other thing that comes before the main practice, or is asking, like sort of like devotion. It's like asking for blessings.
No, I know, totally, I know.
So how do you like that can be strange for some people.
Oh, that's very strange for people who think if you're a Buddhist, you don't.
Yeah.
Because we assume praying is to a creator, right? We do, don't we? So as soon as you hear you're a Buddhist, then you have to do it. So we assume then you don't rely on anybody.
Mm.
But really, if you, and it is interesting, because if you listen to you listen in Tantra to Guru devotion, it's exactly the same as faith in God.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same. It's very hilarious.
Yeah.
Total faith in God. God is right. Yeah. And you do God's wish. Because the interesting thing, the difference in Christianity is, and I remember asking my Jesuit priest friend, by definition, what is a sin? He says, by definition, a negative action is doing what God said not to do. So I suppose even in Buddhism you wouldn't say that. Yeah, no. But in a sense with Guru devotion it's like that.
Yeah.
So then I think that's okay. When I was a little girl, I was a Catholic and I loved God. I loved God. I loved Our Lady. I loved the saints. That for me was the main point. I didn't have to get guilt. I didn't worry about guilt. I loved God, the saints and Our Lady. It was just, I'm being a Buddhist, obviously, So for me, the one of devotion, now I was talking about it, is the most important thing. Because if you've got devotion, your heart's open. Yeah. When your heart's open, you can hear something easily. So our trouble is we fall in love with peanuts. No wonder we get hurt. But here we've got to choose. That's why Pabonka says, in my favourite lines in Pabonka Rinpoche's book, choose your gurus very carefully because you're going to end up like them. Yeah. So then devotion is an open heart. When your heart's open, you're just a sucker. You'll get everything. Everything will just flow in. Yeah. So it's so clear. It's a logical thing, not some kind of, it's a logical thing.
Open your heart.
Devotion's amazing.
Yeah. Devotion is opening your heart to the instructions.
To the person and having confidence that they are valid, and then you just open your heart and you just go for it, baby.
Yeah, and then this is why maybe the advanced practices might be possible.
Because you've got devotion.
Because you've got devotion.
No, I mean, they talk about, isn't it? They talk about, what's his name, Dom Tompa.
Dom Tompa, yeah.
Realising emptiness by carrying Atisha's shit in his hands.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, there's hope for me yet then,
Yes. I once when I was very young, my teacher was trying, there was some discussion about becoming a monk, right?
Yeah, right.
And I said, you're very logical, prove to me why I should become a monk, right? And so the debates went on, and my retort was, well, John Tompa got enlightened and he wasn't a monk.
That's right.
That was what I was holding strong to. And then the teacher said, you're comparing yourself to John Tompa. That's ridiculous. Okay. All right. Oh, wow. So with that, we'll have a 5-minute break.
Oh, we've got more to go.
Yeah, we've got Q&A from everyone. So okay. Beautiful. Thank you so much. We're going to have a 5-minute break.
I've been looking at Daniel the whole time. I haven't been looking at you people. I'm so sorry. Now look at you. A bird needs 2 wings, wisdom and compassion. What underpins it is this marvellous aspiration to develop ourselves so that we can be a benefit to others, leading all the way to perfection. This book that we're using, published by Wisdom, called Mahamudra, How to Discover Our True Nature, is from a teaching that Lama Yeshe gave in 1982 in Australia. So from day one, Lama Yeshe tried to lift us, tried to show us that we had potential. But the Buddha's view, of course, is based on the marvellous view of the mind, because mind is the central thing in Buddhism. And the entire point of the Mahamudra technique is to discover the true nature, first oneself and then the mind. This is the unique characteristic of Mahamudra, that we need to know what the mind is, and we'll discuss this, we'll go into this. So Mahamudra is a super incredible method. This is the experience of the lineage lamas, all the great yogis and yoginis. They all realize Mahamudra in meditation. When you practice Mahamudra, intellect is the enemy. You have to go beyond the intellect. You have to meditate. Then real transformation can come. So we need to develop the skill to go beyond philosophy. We should not be afraid to go beyond it.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We have, and thank you for your questions. I have them here, and we'll get into.
Good. Okay.
And then, okay, so in the process of contact, feeling, then attachment, aversion, when does inappropriate attachment happen?
I don't understand the meaning of inappropriate attachment. What's that mean?
Sorry. My mistake. Inappropriate attention.
No, I know. I hear about that, but I think it's just a load of rubbish. Excuse me. It's not a load of rubbish. But I don't. It's not in the 12 links for a start. It's not. We're talking about the 12 links here, and it's not in the 3 poisons. It's just this added extra peace of mind. And if I just think simply talking about how attachment and aversion arise, I never talk about inappropriate attention. I don't even know how to talk about it, so I can't help. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I never talk about it. I mean, I try to keep it really simple, and just talk about the 3 poisons or even the 2, and that's enough. I mean, there's more detail and it's so sophisticated, but I don't even go there. I have no idea is the answer. I'm so sorry.
So this is a terminology that's come up, is it? Inappropriate attention.
It's one of the functions. It's one of the. I mean, I'm hearing the teachings with Geshe Dagpa on the mind, and this kicks in at some point. But I don't even know what it is. I never thought about it. I don't even know what it is. I'm so sorry.
Okay. So.
The person's clearly studied low rig.
Maybe they can type in something. We can get some more details. But for now, is the I synonymous with the ego self?
Okay, this is a good point, isn't it? Because we use the word ego very loosely, don't we? And let's face it, it's Freud came up with it, and all it is the Greek word for I, isn't it? Ego. That's all it is. So then when we talk about ego, we act. Yeah, we do act. I think we use it synonymously with something called I because we think it runs the show. So we talk about it like that, but technically there is no such thing. So I think we use the word like that as an equivalent of I or self. We do, yeah. But I think the other mistake, we tend to think of ego as being big and fat and powerful. But you're being self-piteous and pathetic and depressed. That's also a function of ego.
Yeah.
Believing in the I. So it's not just, it's the self-pity me, as Lama Yeshe calls it.
Yeah.
So I think it's that.
Yeah. So there's a question around the identifying the object of negation that we were talking about.
Yeah.
So I understand identifying the object of negation was a unique position from Lama Tsongkhapa, for which he was criticized.
Oh, was it really? I didn't know that. Go on.
How do the Buddhists who do not go through this step realize emptiness?
I don't know. I don't know about I don't know about all that. I'm sorry. I haven't studied enough to say that. I don't know. Say that last bit of the question again.
How do the Buddhists who do not go through this step realize emptiness?
It's not. I would say it's not possible. So let me just use that simple example of the iPad. So then they say first, if something exists, you have to be able to point to it.
Yeah.
So because we assume ego grasping, the root delusion, marigpa, is an assumption that's an eons old that there is an I, an independent I, an inherent I, an intrinsic I. It's an assumption that there is one, and everything from there flows. And so everything is based on the belief, on the assumption of an independent I. So Buddha says, sorry guys, I have found there is no such thing. So that's what we're hearing. And he says, you have to discover the absence of that fantasy. You have to identify that I doesn't exist. So you've got to, if you put it into theoretical words, we do the analysis. So if something does exist, so that's why the Buddha, they use an example about the Buddha, whoever does, the one of the thief. If there is a thief in your house, your first step is you want to get the thief out. You assume there is a thief. So the first step is you have to know what the thief looks like. You're going to run around accusing everybody on the planet of being the thief, but they're not the thief. So you've got to first know what the thief looks like. You've got to have a clear picture, and then you have to search for the thief. So this is the same with the iPad. You have to first establish, what does Robina's iPad look like? Okay, the difference here is a thief could exist and an iPad could exist, but an intrinsic I couldn't. It's more subtle. But this is a simple example. So the first step has to be, you've got to establish first what you think you're looking for.
Yeah.
So you walk in the room and you look at, and you crystal clear about what my iPad looks like. Within a few minutes, you will establish either of 2 things only. One, there is an iPad, and you give it back to me.
Yeah.
You will establish with certainty, and you have to have first the parameters of your search.
Yeah.
And the parameters of the search are the aggregates. the body or the mind, you know, either oneness with or separate from. You establish clearly your parameters, and then you really narrowed it all down. You look on that table, that's the parameters, and you will see there is Robina's iPad, and you give it to me. Or you will establish there is no iPad, and that's the discovery of the emptiness of the iPad.
Yeah.
So iPads could exist.
Yeah.
You know, but a thief could exist. So you can't possibly discover the absence of an independent I until you know what the I is that you're looking for. It's not possible. It's impossible. It's impossible. It's like absurd nonsense.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Yeah. And I think Tsongkhapa was worried about negating too much as well. So that's why he wanted you to identify the object of negation, because he didn't want you to also reject the conventional.
Well, that's why he speaks about the two truths, dependent arising, and for understanding emptiness in the framework of the dependent arising. Then you can never fall into the abyss of the great mistake, as Tsongkhapa says. And that's really why that's the best way to look at emptiness in terms of the conventional.
And I think the other schools are not so concerned about negating too much. They don't want to retain too much of a.
No, that's why I think what they're accusing Tsongkhapa of is keeping too much.
Yeah, they are.
That's
and
what
they think that I think Tsongkhapa here they also accuse him of begging the question, because for you to be able to identify the object of negation requires you to know something that isn't empty, which requires you to know what emptiness is. So they say he's got a circular argument. Of course, Tsongkhapa students respond to that.
I know, but if you think of a simple example like the iPad, don't keep it too fancy, you know.
Yeah.
If there isn't either, there's an independent I, but you've got to know what independent means. And here we're meaning as His Holiness said, an I isn't empty because you can't find it, and you won't. An I is empty of existing inherently because it's a dependent arising.
Yeah.
You've got to. So Tsongkhapa's one of the framework of the two truths.
Yeah.
And the way Lama Zopa puts it, he says, when you realize the emptiness of the cup or anything, when you know with certainty there's nothing from the side of cup that makes it cup, it's as if there's no cup.
Yeah.
But dependent arising, conventionally, there is a cup. But what does exist is so subtle, it's as if there isn't a cup. So that's the yogis putting the two truths together, because they finally come together. They're the same thing.
Nicely said. That was very nice. Yep.
Like that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So then the next question, do we have any questions here? Yeah, Barbara.
When you first started to try or learn Mahamudra, that it didn't speak to you.
When I first heard about these type of practice back in the early 80s with Lama Yeshe, we'd get us to do these 5-minute sessions, I didn't know what he was talking about. I got annoyed.
And you said that you were studying.
Then I began to study.
But you enjoyed the study.
Totally in bliss studying.
Can you tell us a little bit about what your studies looked like?
That's okay.
The first part.
I can do that.
And the second part is what was the link between when you got to a certain place in your studies that Mahamudra made?
I understand totally. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I know very vividly. I remember first when I was studying, when I was working for Wisdom Publications, and we were in England, and I was doing the editorial and the production and the accounts and the shipping, and I'd go to London and sell the books to the shops and the distribution as well, and the accounts all in pencil. I created all the accounts. I remember that, and the editing and the production and even the lecture set to make the titles. And I'm just showing off now. So never mind. I was doing all this. It was about 2 of us working for Wisdom, 3 of us or something. So anyway, there's this big center, and Lama Yeshe had started his Geshe program. He called it the Geshe program, which is a miniature version of what we now have as the Master's program, a 7-year program. And I remember this, it was about 70 of us living at the center, and he invited Geshe Tekchok, Jumper Tekchok, who was one of the abbots at Sarah later, one of his friends from Sarah, to teach. And I know, when I first heard the Dharma, I had no interest in meditation. And I had no interest in it. I literally didn't even know what it meant to study Buddhism. All I knew was I wanted to be a nun, and I wanted to get on with doing something. So I like doing things. So I wanted to do wisdom, and I definitely want to see my mind, although I didn't understand it. So then in lunchtime, this first year they did this Geshe program, all these people at lunchtime, because I lived there, all these intense talks. I thought, what the hell are they talking about? These people, all these rabbiting on confusing thoughts. I had no idea. There was this group of people discussing all the teachings, right? I had no idea. And then the next year, I heard the term of the text called Dura, which is the first one you study in the monasteries. Collected topics. It's like the nuts and bolts of the Buddhist structure, of the Buddhist world. And something was triggered. They were studying 5 days a week, really intensively. And I was doing wisdom 60 hours a week, working so hard. And then I went to Geshe Tetsuk. I said, can I come to some of the classes? I was triggered to me. I didn't know why. So I came with my pencil and my book. And all I know is from that second, I was in complete bliss. I was 36 and I'd finally discovered what my mind had wanted. I never went to university. I left school early. I never studied. And now I had, even the Lam Rim didn't do it to me. And I did Lorig, Turig, 4 texts in 2 years. Dura, Lorig, Tarig, and Gupta. 4, the Buddhist tenets, logic, the mind, and this Dura. And I was in bliss. I can't tell you, I was in bliss. So happy finding what my mind had been hungry for all my life. So I got the nuts and bolts of Buddhist teachings. So anything I ever said, I didn't know more. Oh, I tried 70 topics and I gave up. It was too much, you know. But then I decided just to do wisdom instead and not study.
Yeah.
But all I know is it gave me the words. My mind is, I've got a conceptual thought. We've all got conceptual mind, but I like clear thoughts. I wanted clear thoughts, you know. So suddenly I was given the thoughts to think, the infrastructure, the structure of the world, of the universe, of the mind, what it is and what objects are and subject and this and that. I was in bliss. I can't tell you. So that was the beginning because that gave me the substance to know what to do with all this stuff. Do you understand? That's the answer.
Very much.
Everyone's different, but I couldn't say a single word that I'm even saying in this room now if I hadn't done that study. Although I don't even know what inattentive whatever you said was. When we say to Lama Yeshe, oh, please teach us low rig, he'd teach 4 states of mind. Yeah, it's all right, dear. And he'd talk about attachment, aversion, jealousy, and pride. That's about it. That's all I do as well, you know. Do you understand?
Yes.
So that's my answer.
So what was the link between, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
What's the link between when you felt you had this body of study and work?
Well, it was an ongoing process.
But at what point was Mahamudra accessible?
Well, I mean, slowly, as I was, when it became accessible, as I kept studying, and also my job was to edit books. And then also Lama Zopa told me in 1987 to teach. I was very shocked to teach. He said I should teach. So that process of editing books, that bit of study I had done and having to speak what I did know, that deepened, that for me is my analytical meditation, speaking out loud. So I talked about what I knew. And then every time I talk about it, my knowledge would go a bit deeper. Even today, every time I hear, I go, oh, that's interesting. Every time I speak the words, I'm hearing it. I'm getting it a bit deeper. So it's this ongoing process. So it was in natural evolution. And by the time I got to in the 80s, when I tried to edit this in the late 70s, I couldn't do it. Late 80s, it was too difficult for me. And then eventually I went back to it and I was able to understand it and put it together, you know. Took a few years, I have to say. So your mind is ready at a certain point.
Why didn't Lama do it for you?
He died.
Lamrim.
Sorry, what?
Stages of the path.
Do it for you, the Lama.
Because it was arcane, weird idea of hells and things and this and that. It was totally boring. I just didn't do it. I mean, it was just, I couldn't understand it. I didn't know what he meant. But this stuff was just facts about how things exist. It was so delicious. I can't tell you. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And then, the point is, then I could hear the Lam Rim. Then I could hear them. Because the Lam Rim has come from that stuff. It's just the essence of that stuff, you know. But I had to get low rig, you know, to understand when they talk about the 3 poisons. When I heard low rig, I thought, oh, now I understand. So the Lama is just Tatisha taking that stuff and putting it in experiential. So I had to get the background first. That's what was just, those facts was just heaven. But even though that's just the beginning, because every time I say these things, it deepens a little bit more every time you say it, you know, for myself. Do you understand?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm quite intrigued by Lama Yeshe's use of these 5-minute Mahamudra sessions in the context of doing a 6 yogas of Naropa.
Oh, that was just one of the meditations we did. It wasn't directly related to obviously to 6 yogas.
So right, exactly. So that's one of the reasons why I'm actually quite intrigued. And I wonder if at this point, not at the point where you were back then, but at this point, you sort of have some kind of understanding why he may have done it at that time with that.
I think Mama's main reason for giving us to make us to do 5-minute sessions, forget whether it's Mahamudra or not. The one of 5-minute sessions, my feeling is, and this is my opinion now about how I try to work with people as well in my job, that we have all these fantasies, I would say, in the modern world about what meditation is. And I think we think of it as a relaxation technique, but it's got nothing to do with relaxation. I mean, concentration is a really rigorous. And so when some people, it seems to me, can sit very comfortably and can feel very nice, and they'll say, oh, I had a good meditation. Well, no, they didn't. They just spaced out for 20 minutes and created the cause to become an animal. But concentration demands enormous effort to keep your mind, so to concentrate quality 5 minutes and then relax the mind and start again, you really keep on the alert, Whereas if you just sit there, and most people either space out or go berserk. But 5 minutes quality, you can taste something and then relax and you do it again. It's fantastic. And you can really, and you can keep on the point about what the meditation is, which is to focus the mind, to focus, Let us feel good.
But I guess I'm wondering again with it complementing the 6 yogas of Naropa.
I think you're putting too much into it.
It's quite an advanced.
But it was just
practice.
which one?
The yogas of Naropa.
Well, we didn't practice the 6 yogas of Naropa. He got us to practice. He's teaching Tumo. That was mainly what he taught. But as a starting point, we would do the concentration technique. And then he'd get us to do Tumo, bring the heat up or the winds or whatever you do, the blah. That's all we did. We didn't do the rest of them. Do you understand? It's just, Lama getting to taste our mind in every way we could. Isn't it? I think so. What other questions here?
Yeah. So this one's about meditation. So when I meditate, I get very hung up on my posture. Am I sitting right? I'm wondering if I'm doing it right. And I tend to begin obsessing and trying to control my thoughts, feeling what I can do, feelings and all these sort of stuff. So what can I do about this? Is there a way that I can use this to enhance my practice?
Sweetheart, you got to first understand why you're trying to meditate. And what kind of meditation? I'm assuming you're talking about concentration, right? Yeah, don't worry about your body, okay? Of course the body counts. The 8 points they bring up are coming from the experience of the great yogis and yoginis over the centuries, and they're practical. They found that having the legs in full lotus position, your body's nicely aligned, so you don't topple over. You can sit there for months, And secondly, the subtler wind energies can be coursing nicely through the channels. There's meaning to it. You sit there with your muscles relaxed and your body upright, so you don't go to sleep. You sit there with your eyes looking down so that you don't get agitated. There's a reason to all of it, but do your best for God's sake. It's just your body. Your body doesn't meditate. Your mind meditates, okay? So you do your best. And don't worry about your posture. Come on. And also when we understand the Vajrayana model of the intimate relationship between the wind energies in our nervous system, in these subtle channels, and our mental states, they're intimately linked, So so when our mind's really busy and berserk, that means the winds are berserk. So give your body a break, relax. I couldn't sit for 2 minutes. I don't know how anybody can sit for 2 minutes. I can sort of do it from a chair now, but forget single concentration, forget cross-legged. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And it also depends on the meditation. So just that's why people do walking business, isn't it? But just do your best with your body, and then get your mind and focus on, use your breath and just pay attention to the breath and give yourself a break. But, that's my best.
So next question, when practicing Mahamudra, what, if anything, should we be asking ourselves, such as where or who is the I?
I know, that's the thing. It's like the classic one is you sit, there's 2 modes of meditation, okay? We know that in Buddhism, Shine and special insight, Vipassana. And there's all the millions of techniques have to fit into either of these 2. So the first one, so Mahamudra is using these 2 modes. The first one is concentration, shamatha. And so the object of concentration isn't the breath, isn't a concept, isn't a visualization. It's not something physical or external. It's the mind. So it's the mind itself, as we've been discussing. So you start with whatever arises, okay? What's the question again? I forgot. I'm raving on too much.
The question was about, should I be, when I'm doing Mahamudra
practice? Okay, how to think. Okay, yeah. So then you sit there, you do your focusing. And as Lama says, for most of us, he's not saying it, but it's basically to really get to the actual object of your concentration, which is called the conventional nature of your mind. That is advanced, extremely advanced. So you don't worry about that. But you start with paying attention to whatever arises in your mind. And you practice just letting it. watch, even Lama says watching it's even too strong. Just allowing it to be there, allowing it to, you keep your mind sharp, you keep your mind focused, you keep your mind stable, and you allow the thoughts to come, and you allow the thoughts to go. So eventually, because you're not buying into those thoughts, you're not putting oil on the fire, presumably they're going to calm down, right? So then when your mind is fairly steady, you then conjure, as he calls it, your mindfulness fish, this subtle, looking at the corner of your eye, observing. You just merely try to observe how the I, the feeling of I, appears to you. That really is what it is. So Lama, when he talks about it in the book, he does a bit of analysis. You know, first is the body, is it the mind, is it this? So you, because again, if you look at the 4-point analysis, we're first just trying to establish what it is we're looking for. And what we're looking for is an I that's independent of the body, independent of the mind, independent of the name, even my I, right? So so then you're just observing, and you can do it. I mean, Lama says, "Is it the body? Is it the mind?" And you check, no, it's not. No, it's not. And then you just keep watching, and then sometimes it will just come, you know. But mostly you're just using this observation. You're watching the mind part of you, never vary from that, and then you have this other part observing. This is how Tsongkhapa says. And if you catch it, as Lama says, if you catch it, you hold it, you concentrate on that, and the concentration will waver, and you go back, but you don't move from the mind. You know, that's the best I can say. But this is why it's hard without doing analysis. It's hard without saying what is it I'm looking for. Is the mind the body? Is the mind the mind? Is the mind a combination of? Is the I the combination of the body and the mind? This is the analysis. It's got to be. I think it's got to be informing your watching, observing. You know. Seems to me. I don't know.
Any questions here? We have a follow-up.
Yes,
I know it differs from single-pointed meditation.
well, in the sutra teachings, the difference would be this: you've gone to your class, you've heard about dependent arising, you've heard the teachings, you've written it down, or if you're clever, you'll memorize it. You go home, you sit on your cushion, and you get some concentration on the breath, on whatever object you're doing, and you get some focus to the degree that you've accomplished any focus. Then you'd stop the focus. You'd now go to the special insight mode, and you would use that focused mind to now do analysis of dependent arising. And then that will trigger an insight. And then you stop the analysis and hold the insight. That's the difference. I think that's the main technical difference, you know. Yeah.
So we've got lots of questions around what's the differences and similarities between Mahamudra and Dzogchen.
I know Panchanama mentions all these different, there's like 17 different variations that have developed over the centuries. And I have absolutely no idea because I haven't studied it, but I highly recommend that you read His Holiness's wonderful commentary that Alex Berzin has translated, called the Kagyu Mahamudra, the Kagyu Gelug Mahamudra. And I know from the teaching His Holiness gave on this, that Lama Yeshe asked him to do a year later after this, he wrote this, after he did this teaching in India. His Holiness gave this teaching, and it's amazing because he went into every one of these types of meditation, and Panchen Lama says they all come to the same thing. So there's descriptions in there. Panchen Lama, Dalai Lama was amazing and he described everyone so clearly. It's a beautiful book, but I can't tell you. I have no idea about Dzogchen.
We have an update. Inappropriate attention.
Oh, thank you.
Is described as a mind that exaggerates either for something to be more attractive or more unattractive.
You see, I remember studying the middle scope of the Lamrim with Geshe Dagpa in San Francisco, and he started going to these details, and I'd forgotten all that from Low Rig. And then I thought, well, that's absurd because that's exactly the definition of attachment. So why would you want stupid old inappropriate attention? Attachment does that. So that's why, and then he said, well, and then he's made a joke, and I can't remember his answer.
Yeah.
So I don't ever think about inappropriate attention. I'm so sorry.
So it comes together with attachment, basically.
I mean, that's what attachment does. Exactly, the delusions, by definition, exaggerate. Attachment exaggerates deliciousness. Aversion exaggerates ugliness. Pride exaggerates self-importance. Low self-esteem exaggerates unimportance. You know, that's what the job of the delusions is to exaggerate, to embellish.
So we're coming to the end of our time.
Good. Good.
If people want, if people want more of Mahamudra from Lama Yeshe, as explained by Venerable Robina, please check out the course. I think it starts July 18. Of course, we have this.
You said July 11 last time.
July 11. Your mind is better than mine. July 11th. Let's go with that. And the book, the book's here as well.
I recommend Lama's book. I mean, I edited it, I know that, but I mean, just Lama's teachings are just so delicious, so sweet, you know. He's just incredibly encouraging, incredibly appealing. So please read Lama, he's amazing. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, this course I did, I don't remember what I did. Anyway, I had a panic attack doing it.
It's fantastic. I can tell you it's
Okay,
fantastic.
good.
I got to sit in on
And I mean,
quite a bit of it.
yeah. So I'm a work in progress, and my understanding of Mahamudra is a work in progress as well. So if I can be a catalyst for you to listen to Lama, then I'm happy, okay? I'm his daughter, okay?
It's incredibly inspiring course. And thank you also for tonight for bringing these like, you know, highfalutin concepts down to the ground for us. That's really, really
That's the
helpful.
idea.
Thank
That's
you
what
so
Lama
much.
did, and that's what gave me so much encouragement. You know?
Thank you, Venerable.
Good,
for
thank you,
joining
Daniel,
us.
for everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.